Grace, the pastor's daughter, is loved by everyone for being perfect, but Cynthia accidentally finds out a shocking secret about her. As Cynthia digs deeper, she realizes Grace has been hiding things that could ruin how everyone sees her. Now, Cynthia must decide whether to expose the truth and risk hurting many people. Will Grace's secret be revealed? Watch this true life story till the end and drop your thoughts in the comments section. Grace had just finished her secondary school education with excellent grades and was awaiting admission to the university. She was known in the church for her sweet, humble behavior and her dedication to God. Grace sang in the choir, taught Sunday school to little children, and was always by her father's side during church activities. People adored her. She was the pastor's daughter. "I wish my daughter could be more like Grace," mothers would say, shaking their heads at their own children. Grace's mother, the pastor's wife, was very proud of her daughter. To her, Grace was the perfect child. She prayed every day that her child would remain obedient and continue to make the family proud. To the entire town, Grace was the golden child. She wore modest clothes, spoke kindly to everyone, and had a smile that could warm any heart. But behind this perfect image, Grace was not the girl everyone thought she was. One Sunday after church, as the congregation dismissed, Grace noticed Mr. Daniel. Mr. Daniel was one of the married men in the church, tall, with a kind face. He always sat in the first row with his wife and children. Something about him caught Grace's attention. Her heart skipped a beat, and she felt drawn to him in a way she had never felt before. At first, Grace tried to push the feelings away. "This is wrong," she told herself. But the more she saw Mr. Daniel, the stronger the feelings grew. Soon, she couldn't resist. One afternoon, after choir practice, Grace approached Mr. Daniel. "I need to talk to you, sir," she said, her eyes darting around to make sure no one was listening. They walked to a quiet corner of the church. "What is it, precious?" Mr. Daniel asked, confused. "I don't know how to say this, sir, but I feel something for you," she muttered. Mr. Daniel was shocked, but before he could speak, Grace looked into his eyes mysteriously. As their eyes met, Mr. Daniel lost control of himself. Grace leaned closer, her hand gently touching his arm. From that day on, Grace and Mr. Daniel began to meet in secret places, his office, hidden corners in the bush, and even small motels outside town. One Saturday, during an evangelism program led by Grace and the church youth, Grace approached Victor, the church's keyboardist. He was a newlywed man. "Victor, you smell really nice today," she complimented him. "Oh, Grace, you did well today," he replied. "Sir, I wanted to see you about something, if you don't mind." "Okay, I'm all ears." "What is it?" Victor asked politely. "Well, sir, I think I may have developed some feelings for you." "Grace. What nonsense is this? You're just a little girl, and I'm a married man. Have you been seeing nonsense on the internet?" he scolded her. But Grace touched his hand, and he immediately lost a sense of control. They hugged tightly and decided to meet later that night. Soon, Grace and Victor also began meeting in secret places. More than 10 married men from the church fell into Grace's secret web. Yet, despite these secret meetings, Grace kept up her image as the perfect pastor's daughter. She still sang in the choir, taught Sunday school, and had that sweet smile everyone admired. Meanwhile, Cynthia, a girl from the same church, lived in a different world. Cynthia's parents constantly compared her to Grace. "Why can't you be more like Grace?" her mother would say. "Look at how well-behaved she is. She sings in the choir, teaches Sunday school, loves children, and everyone loves her. Look at how she helps out in church." These words made Cynthia feel small. She hated being compared to Grace, but her mother never stopped. This built a strong resentment in Cynthia. She despised Grace and disliked her for any reason. One morning, after the usual comparison between herself and Grace, Cynthia sat down alone and thought, what if this Grace isn't as perfect as everyone thinks? I need to look deeper into her life. Nobody can be as perfect as this. She's a young girl, she must have her own flaws and wrongdoings. One day, after choir practice, Cynthia couldn't take it anymore. She decided to follow Grace home to see if she was truly as perfect as everyone thought. Secretly, she sneaked behind her. Then, she saw something that made her heart race. Grace wasn't going home as she expected, she was sneaking off into the bush, looking around nervously. Cynthia followed from a distance, her heart pounding. As she got closer, she saw Grace meeting one of the married men from the church, Mr. Daniel. They were talking quietly, but their body language told Cynthia everything she needed to know. Her heart pounded as she watched them. She took out her phone and secretly recorded the conversation, capturing Grace's manipulative charm and Mr. Daniel's uneasy responses. Shocked, Cynthia decided to dig even deeper. Over the next few weeks, she secretly followed Grace and discovered that Grace wasn't just meeting with Mr. Daniel, she was also meeting with several other married men from the church in hidden places. Cynthia couldn't believe it. The perfect pastor's daughter, the one everyone adored, was living a double life. She knew she had to tell someone, but who? Cynthia couldn't hold on to this revelation anymore. She decided to tell Achiever, another girl from church. She called Achiever one evening. "Hey, Achiever, how are you doing? Can you come to my place this evening? I need to see you, and it's serious." "Okay, Cynthia, I'll be there in a few minutes," Achiever replied. In a flash, Achiever arrived at Cynthia's house. "Cynthia, what's so important that you couldn't wait and had to call me on the phone?" Achiever asked, looking concerned. "My dear, these past few weeks have been traumatizing for me. I've been having sleepless nights." "Is it that serious?" Achiever asked, her concern deepening. "Yes, it's very serious." "Okay, just tell me what's going on," Achiever urged. "Do you know that Grace, the pastor's daughter, has been secretly meeting in ungodly places with almost all the married men in the church?" Cynthia revealed. "What?" Achiever gasped. "Are you sure you're not making this up? How could I possibly make something like this up? I'm dead serious." "This is so bad," Achiever said. "We need to tell someone about this." "No," Cynthia stopped her. "Let's think about the families that would break if this comes to light. Let's think about Pastor's reputation. He's a good man, known for his honesty and deep love for God. Every Sunday, he stands at the altar and preaches about righteousness, guiding his congregation. I don't want us to break the heart of a man like that. So, Cynthia, what do you think we should do then?" Achiever asked. "I think we should just keep this between us for now and see if Grace will change. You know how they say time changes people, right? Let's watch her for a while and see if she does." One Sunday morning, as Cynthia and her mother walked into the church, the comparison started again. "Cynthia, look at how Grace is dressed, so modest and respectful. She's always so helpful in the church. Everyone admires her," her mother said. "You need to start acting more like Grace." Cynthia felt a knot in her stomach but kept her eyes on the ground. It wasn't that she didn't love God or enjoy going to church, but she didn't see the need to be like Grace, the double-life girl at the church. Her mother's eyes followed Grace, who was helping organize Sunday school. She turned to Cynthia again and whispered, "See how Grace is always doing something helpful. Why don't you join her or help with the children?" Cynthia bit her lip, feeling the pressure. "Mom, I'm not Grace," she said quietly. Her mother frowned. "Maybe you should try to be more like her. Respect her, because she brings pride to her family. You can't just be an average girl when you could be more like her." Later that evening, after the service, Cynthia sat on a bench, deep in thought. She knew her mother loved her, but she wished her mother could see that being herself was enough. The next Sunday after the service, Cynthia gathered her courage and approached the church elders. "I need to tell you something about Grace," she said. The elders gave her the go-ahead, and she presented her findings to them. The room was filled with tension as Cynthia played the recordings and showed the photos. Pastor Jude and his wife were seated at the head of the table, their faces pale with shock. Pastor Jude called out to his daughter in disbelief. "Is this true, Grace?" "Yes, Father. I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to stop," Grace replied, tears in her eyes. Her mother, with tears streaming down her face, said, "We trusted you. How could you do this to us?" The elders and the congregation were in turmoil. Pastor Jude struggled to maintain his composure, while Mrs. Jude was overwhelmed with grief. At home, Grace was locked in her room to reflect on her actions, while Pastor Jude and Mrs. Jude gave a heartfelt and sincere apology to the congregation the following Sunday. That same Sunday, a new minister named Minister Moses arrived in town. He had heard about the turmoil and came to offer his support. During the service, he shared an unexpected revelation. "I have a message that I believe is crucial for this community," Minister Moses began. "I have been praying for guidance and received a vision about Grace." The congregation listened intently as Minister Moses continued. He then turned to Pastor Jude. "Pastor, many years ago, around the time your wife was pregnant with Grace, you cast out an evil spirit from a woman. This spirit vowed revenge and sought to possess Grace from the womb. It has come to my knowledge that this spirit has been targeting Grace from that moment," he said. Gasps and whispers filled the room. Pastor Jude and his wife looked at each other in shock. This spirit has influenced Grace's actions, causing her to live a life of manipulation and deception. But through intense prayer, fasting, and divine intervention, we can now free Grace from its hold, Minister Moses declared. The congregation gathered around Grace as Minister Moses led a powerful prayer. The air was charged with hope and faith as they prayed for her deliverance. After the prayer, Grace looked relieved, as though a weight had been lifted. She thanked Minister Moses and the congregation, tears of gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you all for your prayers and support. I feel free for the first time in a long while. I am committed to making things right and rebuilding my life," she said. "We are grateful for this revelation," Pastor Jude said. "We must remember that even in our darkest moments, there is hope and redemption." He hugged his daughter tightly. "I'm so sorry, Grace. I should have been more understanding," her mother said. "We are here for you, my daughter." The congregation was relieved and hopeful. Grace began working on rebuilding her relationship with God and mending the relationships with those she had hurt. She volunteered to help and support the families affected by her actions, working towards regaining their trust. Cynthia sent an encouraging message to Grace. "It's good to see you finding your way back. Remember, everyone deserves a second chance." "Thank you, Cynthia. Your support means a lot to me," Grace replied. Dear viewers, what a journey it's been for Grace, Cynthia, and the church community. Now, I leave you with a question: would you call Grace a bad person or a good person? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you all with 3 important moral lessons from this story. Perfection is often an illusion. Sometimes, the perfect image people project may hide deeper struggles. Grace appeared flawless to the outside world, but her actions revealed the truth. It's important to remember that true character is shown through actions, not appearances. Pressure can be harmful. Cynthia was constantly compared to Grace, which only added to her frustration and resentment. Comparing people and pressuring them to meet unrealistic standards can lead to harmful consequences. Support and encouragement are much more effective. Empathy and understanding are crucial. Grace's struggles weren't just about her actions, there were deeper influences at play. Sometimes, unseen battles or hidden struggles affect a person's behavior. By offering empathy and addressing the root causes, we can guide others toward healing and redemption. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. See you all in the next one.